everyone, welcome back to Reissued. If you're new here, my name is Andrew. Today we are going to kick off the new year with the 2024 home tour. I did my last home tour about a year ago as my first video of the year as well, and I thought that was a great way to kick off the year for a couple of reasons. First of all, if you're new here, this is going to be a great crash course in my ongoing home renovation. If you're a regular viewer here on my channel, I'm going to be talking about a lot of projects that I plan to be working on in 2024, if not further in the future, not sure yet. And then finally, it feels very fitting to do this video at the start of the year to kind of take stock of everything that's happened so far. I think of these videos as kind of like a time capsule or a progress report. There has been so much work that we've done on the house so far, especially over the last year, and so it's going to be fun to look back and kind of compare from one year to the next how much has really happened. So if you want to compare and contrast as well, I'm going to be making a playlist with all of my home tour videos so you can just watch them in a row and see how far we've come. Can't wait to get started today and show you how things are looking. Let's jump on it. So first things first, on the exterior of the house, not too much is really different here. We have some work that needs to be done on the outside, repairing some trim, and of course doing a paint job all around. That feels like it's a little bit outside of the DIY scope, so I got a quote on doing that a while back, and it was just a little bit more than I wanted to spend at that time. So for right now, we're keeping the weird multicolor paint job. Another thing that you know has been bugging me if you watch any of the other tour videos, there's that little gingerbread detail in one of the peaks. A lot of the porch used to have that detail, and one of the previous owners ripped out all of the porch, and now it's a lot more streamlined. So my plan had been to take out all the detailing on that little peak. However, because of the height of the roof and because the metal roof that's on the porch is so slippery, that is not a DIY job. I had that included as a part of my quote, and it was $1,500 just to remove that thing. So that's not gonna happen. Worst case scenario, I think we can probably just paint that out and have it kind of blend in. But you know I like to do things the hard way, so I do wonder what would happen if I kind of cut out some of the spindles in there and replace them with something that's a little bit more geometric and a little bit more me. There's many homes in my area that have those gingerbread details at the peak, but they're a little bit more graphic. One house nearby has these kind of like bird shapes. There's a house down the street that has star shapes. They just feel a little bit more exciting and a little bit more graphic, whereas the spindles that I have feel very Victorian and kind of stuffy and just don't fit with the vibe that I'm including in the house here. So it may be possible to sort of cut some of that out and put in some custom pieces instead. Let me know what you think. This is definitely not a top priority this year, so I'm not sure we'll see that happen in 2024, but just wanted to put that out there. Similarly, I've mentioned in the past that all of the siding on the house is white vinyl siding. We don't love the vinyl. We know that the original siding is underneath the vinyl. We just don't know what kind of condition it is. So there is a very sort of chaotic part of me that's like, what would happen if we just pulled it all off and like saw what we were working with here? However, that could go wrong really fast if the siding is not in good condition. So again, probably won't see too much change on the exterior of the house this year, but that may be coming down the line. Up on the porch, this is a huge transformation from the tour video last year. Over the summer, we did the porch makeover video, and that totally transformed this space. I remember in the tour video last year, there was like crap all over the porch. It just looked really like unkempt and in process, and now it looks a lot more streamlined. Not much has changed here up on the porch since that makeover video. I'm swapping out a couple of the more spring-summer plants for some more year-round plants. Everything kind of died off, and now it feels really barren, so I'm trying to pick up some things that will kind of last through the winter as well. And then also, you may remember in that video, I was really concerned about which table to go between the two black rocking chairs. I have swapped that out again. I think it looks better, although I suspect that the real problem is the rug. I talked about the rug a lot in my 2023 recap video. But yeah, I think the table looks better for now. I moved the old table over closer to the front door. It's nice to have that there to sort of set things on as you open the door and come in. So small changes here, small progress, it's looking good. Moving on inside. As I've mentioned before, living through a renovation is a very unique thing, which involves moving a lot of stuff from one space to the next. I like to acquire a lot of materials so that I have things on hand when I need them, but it's always kind of a game of where to put things in the meantime. So different rooms have taken turns being the storage room, and this room is kind of taking its turn right now as we start to work on the other rooms. So yeah, there's been almost no progress in this space. It's just kind of a holding area for various pieces, which I'm okay with at this time. Over the past week, week in the post-Christmas and pre-New Year's week, my parents have been over here at the house a lot, and we've been just kind of clearing out so much stuff. I've donated a lot of things, I've compiled a lot of things that I want to sell, we've reorganized a lot of the spaces, and so everything is feeling a lot more put together than it did before. I'll talk about this a bit more once we get to the guest room at the end of the video, but it seems like in the past couple of months we've turned a corner from everything feeling like it still needs to be done to starting to feel like a lot of it is done, and we're sort of almost nearing the final stages of putting everything together. Of course, there's still so much work to do, but in terms of planning and deciding what goes in each space, I feel like I'm really narrowing that a bit, which I kind of have mixed feelings about, so we'll talk about that later. Moving on into the studio, this room is coming together so beautifully. I'm so excited how this is looking. I'm gonna be coming out with a part 5 in that makeover series over the next couple of weeks. We've been doing a lot of work on the kind of countertop area over by the window. We're gonna be doing more work on the fireplace as well. Stripping, staining, tiling, all of that good stuff. As things have been coming together for this space, I've been playing around with different styling options. I'm loving these lamps on either side of the sofa. Both are gonna need some slight adjustments with the harp height to make the shades look right, but I'm very excited about how those are looking. Over on the thrift flip desk area, I'm gonna wait to make any big changes until I see the whole room completed together. When I put out that video, several people mentioned in the comments how the drawer fronts, like the grain of the wood doesn't all go the same way, and the colors of the wood stain slightly differently. And at the time, it didn't really bother me, but as more stuff starts to come into this room, I just feel like there's maybe a little bit too much wood tone happening there, and it feels like there's not very much contrast. It's like the desk and the shelves and the little pull-out drawers and the chair, it's all kind of blending together. And so I'm wondering what would happen if I painted the drawer fronts or maybe put leather on the drawer fronts. I'm just thinking about some other options there to kind of break this up a little bit visually. Additionally, I didn't mention this at the time, but the styling on the upper shelves really bugs me. I just kind of threw some things in there to shoot the after for that video, but there is quite a bit that needs to happen there, I think, in terms of filling out the full space. Everything is sitting kind of toward the bottom, and I want to fill out those spaces a little bit more so that it feels more complete. Also, I put in those white frames that I had on hand just to give a little bit of brightness in there. I think that was a really great move and gives a little bit of contrast. However, I just think the frames look kind of cheap. So I think we can do better in finding something that's a little bit more unique, changing up the art that's in there to make the styling better. But yeah, after the counter goes in, after the fireplace is done, this room is gonna be basically done. It'll be a while before we'll be completely done because the floor needs to be painted. We didn't end up painting the floor back when the room was totally empty because we wanted to go ahead and start to move some of the furniture back in to get a sense of layout without waiting for it to dry super long. And I'm really glad that we did that, actually. We've been moving some stuff around, particularly the really heavy filing cabinets, and they're very difficult to lift, and so we've kind of dragged them around a lot. And I would hate to be dragging around a file cabinet on top of our perfect new paint job, so it's good that we have figured out kind of a layout and a spacing for everything now, so that when we get the living room floor prepped for paint as well, we can just do both rooms at the same time and get everything back where it goes without having to push things around too much. It kills me a little bit because we're gonna be doing like a semi-reveal on this room, and I feel like the floor looks awful, the color is awful, it's in bad shape, and it's gonna be so transformative to paint that floor. But sometimes with a renovation, it's about doing what you need to do to move forward and make things work with the schedule, rather than making everything perfect and exciting for a video. But it is what it is. Moving on to the living room. Unlike last year's video where this was a complete storage room, we have some space in here. This is finally starting to feel kind of like a room. However, we can't move forward with too many projects until we do the big glaring project that wasn't really planned, and that is removing the ceiling and bouncing it back up to its original 12-foot height. If you've watched my channel before, you may know that we raised the ceiling in the kitchen, partly because we had to because it was literally falling in, and we got an extra 3 feet of space in there, bouncing the 9-foot ceiling up to the 12-foot ceiling. Totally transformed that space. I was not planning to change the ceiling in the studio or here in the living room, but with the studio, we were putting up a light fixture and we looked up in the hole and we saw that beautiful ceiling underneath, and so we had to uncover that and repair that. And this is the last of those 3 rooms, and again, I wasn't planning to raise the ceiling, but we're raising the roof in here. We're gonna take out this existing textured ceiling that looks awful and go back to the original 12-foot ceiling. That's more complicated in this space because the ceiling and the upper walls are in such disrepair in this room as we've seen from the attic. attic side of things, so raising the ceiling in here is going to be complicated. Additionally, I want this room to retain a warm, cozy kind of feel, and so I'm thinking that I want to do some sort of wood treatment on the ceiling to keep that kind of warmth happening, but I don't really have a plan for that just yet, so we're going to let this room sit for a little while longer. A couple ongoing projects in this space. I have some green velvet fabric draped over a lamp in here. I think that it would be so beautiful as a lampshade, and so I'll probably be working on that at some point, maybe not on the lamp that it's on. I'm not sure that it all goes together, but I love that color and I think it would be beautiful in here. Additionally, there is a chair that I found on the street almost 2 years ago now. It was sitting on my porch the last time I did a walkthrough at the start of last year. I am stripping it down and covering it with thrifted leather jackets. I did a lot of work on that project around September of last year. I was trying to put that out as a video, but all the pieces just weren't coming together right just yet, so I thought we'll sit on it a little bit longer, we'll find a better plan. Hopefully that happens in 2024. I'm tired of having this project be halfway done and looking like crap, partly because I'm so excited about it. I think it's such a great idea and it's gonna look really amazing when it's all done, but still got a ways to go on that one. We finally painted the door casing and trim between the living room and this room, and so I had to break out the paint color for this room just to see what it's all about. It's very similar to the kitchen cabinet color, but just a little bit lighter, so you can see that around the door trim. It looks a little gray at the moment. I know it is gray, so of course it looks gray, but I think it's gonna read a little bit more bluey greeny once all the other colors come into the space. So trust me on that one, it's gonna be awesome. But also in my short video last year where I opened up Oops paint that I got from Lowe's, there was a color that I found that was very, very similar, but just a little bit more saturated and just a little bit more green. And so we'll have this color on the trim and cabinetry and then have the Oops paint on the wall behind. So it'll be kind of a tone on tone thing, very similar colors, but just a little bit different to give a little bit of variation. Final thought here in this room. In my last tour video, I had the sofa turned 90 degrees so that it faced where the TV will be over this little wood piece that I have against the fireplace wall. And something about that didn't feel right at the time, so we turned it so it's centered on the windows, which looks really nice when you look into the room. However, I'm thinking more and more about function, and I'm thinking it would be better if the sofa just faced the TV head on, just because I think it will feel kind of awkward to sit on the sofa and then have to look sideways at the TV. Let me know what you think about this. Does your sofa face a TV, or do you have it in like an L-shaped configuration? I'm just curious. Moving on into the kitchen and pantry area, everything in here is more or less complete, so we're not looking at any major transformations. I definitely want to find some cool vintage hooks this year, maybe to hang this tapestry thing behind me, definitely to hang some things on in the pantry that can be useful. Hardware is one of those things that I could just go out and buy something because I need it and because it's useful. However, it's way more exciting when you can come across something that's really special, so I'm really on the hunt for something special for these spaces so that I can have a little bit of design but also some real practicality. Over in the pantry, I put a small whiteboard in that space as well. When we cut down the larger whiteboard to make the one for my studio space, we kept a little offcut and made this one as well. Funny story, I bought the frame in my prepping for market day video. That was when I was convinced that one of my collages was 11 by 14, and so I looked all over for a frame that was 11 by 14, and it was not 11 by 14, so I had this random frame hanging around. That is that frame. We also took the glass out of that frame, sanded down the edges a little bit so that it wasn't sharp, and put it atop the nightstand in my bedroom. It fit perfectly over there and gives a much more durable finish atop that table, which was kind of awesome. So we stretched this little $5 frame as far as it possibly can go. But yeah, the only real progress happening in these spaces is for functionality. Again, we've done a lot of reorganizing. I'm trying to get my drawers in here organized next. I don't have the most cabinet space ever. I don't have the most drawers, and so I'm trying to figure out how to maximize those for utensils. Does anybody have any good solutions or leads on solutions for practical utensil storage for like regular unfinished cabinets? These were unfinished cabinets that I purchased at Home Depot, so they're not IKEA or anything that's compatible with those kinds of systems. So I'm looking for something to go in the drawers that fits the drawer accurately and then also maybe has possible levels so that I can stack some things up on top of each other. I feel like I have several drawers that are super deep that I don't really need that depth. I need the shallower things so that I can put in more utensils and stuff. Does that make sense? So let me know if you have any ideas. Over in the half bathroom, as I mentioned in my last video, not too much to report here. I hardly ever go in this space. I don't really use it anymore since it got blocked off from the other room. However, there are some small changes that I might make here in terms of styling. I have these really cool hand-shaped hooks that my mom found that I'm going to be using as like a towel hanger. I also have a couple of pieces of art in here that feel appropriate for the kind of vibe of this space, and so I might be hanging those as well. Just playing around with styling a bit in here. Love the function of this room. Love the look. Check it out. Next up is what I call the atrium. I call this an atrium because it used to be the back porch and it feels like sort of a pass-through space between other spaces. And I also wanted to have that kind of like conservatory greenhouse feel. It has the skylights, it gets tons of natural light. So atrium felt like the appropriate term for it. It is also sort of a dining space, but mostly it's just gonna be kind of like an indoor greenhouse of sorts. I've talked about this room at various points on my channel, but I haven't really ever focused on it fully. When we were doing a lot of the massive reconstruction on this room, I was in a phase where I wanted to sort of have a room done before I talked about it. So this room has never really been done, so it hasn't really gotten talked about. So just as a little recap, the entire floor and subfloor was pulled out of this room due to water damage. All of that was put down, the tile was put in to match the kitchen. There was a lot of drywall repair done in here to make things a little bit more level and even. So while there's been massive construction on this room, there hasn't been too much of a visual change from where it started. However, there's some really cool styling things that have happened in this space. So I got this ginger jar lamp at the REISSUED, love how that looks in here. I found this interesting wood bookcase type piece. It didn't have any sort of legs on it, so I found these metal legs at the bottom. I liked the contrast between the curvy antique lines and those really strong metal legs. I also got this metal like pot rack wall hanging thing that's been great for putting plants on to give some height to this wall. I love how the black armoire looks in this space. However, I think that it might be moving out to the guest room. Not sure about that yet. I think it looks fine now, but I think it's gonna end up being too deep with the changes that we're making to the entry wall. On that wall, as I mentioned before, we're gonna take off all of the siding that's there and we're gonna put in windows. I thrifted these vintage windows. And so on both sides of that doorway and over the top, it's gonna be all glass, letting that light pour into the entry. It's gonna be incredible. That is a very daunting project because that is a load-bearing wall, and so there's some structural considerations there. So I'm very hopeful that that project is a priority for 2024 because I think that's gonna totally transform this space and allow this room to really be done so I can make a video about it for you guys. But for now, I'm enjoying the space as a little plant haven, indoor-outdoor feel. Over here in the guest bathroom, not too much to report here. That was a massive transformation last year, finishing up that space. My only focus on this room at this point is on little minute details, possibly repackaging some of my ugly bath products into something that looks a little bit more aesthetic, continuing to get more organized in my storage solutions. As I mentioned, the skylights in the guest bathroom and the atrium were replaced over the summer, and so those were kind of in process still. We finally got those fully painted, and so they look completely beautiful and brand new. My parents worked really hard to fill and patch and paint and get those looking perfect. And so yeah, the guest bathroom is continuing to be beautiful and functional. Love it. Here in my bedroom, we saw tremendous progress this year getting everything organized, switching out the useless closet into built-ins. I mentioned in a couple of videos that I was wanting to take the other bigger useless closet and remove that as well and reopen the passageway between the primary bedroom in here and the guest room next door. I'm not sure about that decision now, partly because I think that functionally it doesn't really make sense to have those rooms connect, which I knew, but also I feel like I'm really pressed for larger concealed storage for things like suitcases and larger storage bins, things that I can't fit in one of my PAX wardrobes behind me. And so I'm thinking that we might keep that closet in place and do another PAX situation behind it for the guest room. Not sure about that yet, but we are throwing that idea around. One of the last remaining projects in this room is going to be the doors on the PAX wardrobes behind me. I opted not to purchase the store-bought doors because they are so expensive and because of course I wanted something that was more custom. So we are going to build them using some melamine that I got at the REISSUED. I got these really cool shades at IKEA that I think will be a really beautiful texture on the front. We're going to do some melamine banding around the edges so that it feels very clean and graphic and crisp. Very excited about that project. Also, in the doorway into the primary bath, we are going to be widening the wall there so that we can slide a pocket door in. This door is quite awkward at the moment. It can't sit fully flat against the wall, and so it's kind of just butting up into my standing mirror at the moment. I really want the mirror there to fill up that corner, and this door is just kind of in the way. And so we're actually going to make that wall deeper and allow the door to slide right into the wall as a pocket door. And that depth on the other side by the sink is going to be a little area that we can do some concealed storage like a medicine cabinet. This bathroom is super small, so any kind of concealed storage that we can add in that space is going to be a big deal. Initially, I was thinking that this bathroom was going to be one of the last things that we did in the house. However, that is getting kind of bumped up the list. There are some really cool brands that have reached out to me with bath products that I'd love to show you guys and I'd love to have in my house. And there's going to be so much demo in this space that it just feels right to do that earlier rather than later once everything is more perfect. Midway through last year, I found this little sink vanity combo at the REISSUED for like 40 bucks. Don't love how the cabinet looks. Don't necessarily love how the sink looks, but it's quite neutral. And you can see from the side that we wanted something that was shallow enough to not butt into the trim around the door. And so with the shape of the sink, it's quite narrow on the sides and then bowls out in the middle, which is going to be perfect for allowing it to fit into this space. We are definitely going to switch to a different vanity because I hate the way that that looks. But sometimes it's nice to kind of switch things out just to kind of get a sense of how the function of the space is going to work. With the mirror that's there, found that for 15 bucks at the REISSUED store. Love how that looks for the space. There's something really nice in a small bathroom like this with the low wood ceiling of having sort of a hanging mirror like that. It just feels very kind of quaint and sweet to me in a way. And then of course we're going to be doing some layout configuration changes, expanding and squaring off the shower just a bit, turning the tub 90 degrees, turning the toilet 90 degrees, and doing a half wall for privacy. We have some great solutions to make this space work, but we won't really know how it's all going to come together until we pull this room apart. So I think that's going to be something that happens in the next couple of weeks, just getting all of the stuff out of the bathroom and sort of seeing the blank canvas that we'll be working with. Final stop on the tour is here in the guest room. Now, if you've seen any of my videos before, you'd be like, Andrew, what is that space? It looks so different. That's because this room has always been like the designated storage room that's always been like piled with crap. And even though there's still a little bit of crap hanging around in this space, things that we haven't really found a place for yet or we're just kind of holding on to, it looks wildly different in here than it did just like 2 weeks ago. There were so many bins of things in this room, fabric, just raw materials that I had acquired, and I always thought like, I will do something with that eventually, I will hold on to it. And I've come to a place in the last couple of weeks where, you know, I'm really assessing which projects are actually gonna get done, which things do I care enough about doing, which things am I willing to let go. That is sort of a tough thing for me that I'm kind of moving forward in my life and my channel. You know, like there's so many things that I thought I was gonna do a lot more sewing videos. I thought I was gonna be doing certain projects for my apartment, but then I got my house and I'm not really sewing much anymore. And so there's just certain things that it's just time to let them go. One of those casualties was the pull-out sofa that I had purchased. Originally, I was gonna do that in my studio space as a part of the desk area to have a bed pull out in there. It just didn't end up fitting within that space. I was thinking of moving to the living room, but it just didn't seem to make sense in there either, so I had to let that one go. That was really tough for me because, again, I had really exciting expectations for how it was gonna look and how that project was gonna be for you all, but we're letting go and we're moving forward in 2024. One thing that was helpful for me, if you're sort of a project hoarder like I am, I thought a lot about how unique the item was. If you're trying to decide which things to get rid of, it seems to make sense in my mind to keep the things that are most unique that you can't just go out and find again, right? So on that note, as I mentioned, we're kind of coming to the end of each space starting to feel a little bit more complete. And so the guest room was kind of like the final frontier where anything that didn't belong in any other space, I was like, oh, it might work in the guest room. It might go in there. And now here we are, and I'm having to really make cuts about which pieces I'm really going to hold on to and what's going to fit together to give this room an identity other than the leftovers, right? So a couple of the pieces that I really like in here, I have this sort of French style antique bed. It is a full bed. Queen and king beds didn't really come around until like the 1950s, I believe. So what I'm gonna do here, the footboard was a little bit damaged, so I think we're just gonna end up using the headboard, and I'm gonna juxtapose it against this like super modern, clean metal frame that I got on Amazon. I think once the bedding goes on, these two are gonna look a little bit more seamless, and there'll be a nice contrast there to kind of cut the sweetness of the bed with the harshness of the metal. I also picked up this yellow velvet chair and ottoman at the REISSUED store a couple months back. I just got rid of a different yellow chair that I wasn't feeling for the space. Somehow yellow is just what keeps coming back to me in this room. I think it'll work nicely with the yellow mid-century lamp that I have, and it works nicely with the lines of the bed. So yeah, still a long way to go with deciding kind of the function and the layout and the style for this room, but it's certainly an improvement above storage room. As I mentioned, I think we might keep the closet from the primary bedroom, which will keep this corner in play as kind of cutting into this room. However, my plan ultimately is to take out the rest of the closet, the whole part that goes up over the top. It just feels like it's looming, and I hate the way that the doors look. So I think that taking it out entirely and reclaiming that square footage for the room will feel a lot more functional and a lot more fresh for the space. All right, everybody, thank you so much for coming along with me for my 2024 house tour. If you want to see more of my renovation, if you want to stay up to date on my projects, be sure that you're subscribed. If you want to compare and contrast and see how far we've come from one year to the next, go ahead and watch last year's home tour, or even the very first one when I first moved into the house. I'll be sure to link those down below. I cannot wait to embark on a new year of projects here. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys soon.